like travel? Woo! Yes, but one time, you know, in the late 40s and early 50s, and then they said I could colonize in England in reverse. Me and my aunt wrote it say so. What a joyful news, Miss Smarty. I feel like my heart might burst. Jamaica people colonizing England in reverse. By the hundred, by the thousand, from country and from town, by the shipload, by the plane load, Jamaica is England bound. Them are poor out of Jamaica, everybody's future plan is to take a big time job and settle in the motherland. Hey, what a island, what a people.
Coined, that phrase coined by Miss Louise Bennett out of Jamaica, that famous poet, colonizing England in reverse, colonization in reverse.
I just want to interject with what Troy was saying about the passport. A lot of individuals who have children here are unaware of the fact, or I'm not sure if they're unaware or yes, it's not something that's at the front of their minds, that they are entitled to passports from the parents' country. The children who are born here are entitled to passports.
So if you're from St. Vincent,
you're entitled to a Vincentian passport.
You can go to St. Vincent and get a.
And it is
yes, or Jamaica, you can get a Jamaican passport.
Absolutely.
But the issue that we're looking at here, Shawanda, is whether or not they shouldn't have a BVI passport because they're born here. Yeah,
but one of the reasons we're presenting is that a BVI passport would allow them to travel. But they are allowed to travel anyway because they're entitled to the passport from their home country. And part of it is from.
Go and get that first.
But absolutely, they should.
I know this is a key point here. Yeah. We have a situation that you've talked about earlier about the policies that the territory has. The challenge comes where you have persons living in the territory for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And they have not had any kind of a status. So now they have children in the territory. So it seems really ridiculous to the persons who call the BVI their home for the last 20 years, who may not know their original home, to go back to that country to attain a passport or try to re-qualify for those travel documents. When some of those countries themselves might have regulations about how long you have to live within that territory before you are granted some of these privileges.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation, so people, if they want to check, they should check the constitutions. Because there's one person that told me that in Jamaica, they don't issue passports to children born outside of Jamaica, and that was completely false. I mean, very early in the Constitution, it says that all children born to Jamaican parents, regardless of where they are entitled to a passport. So a lot of people are the victim of misinformation.
Because you said something a while ago about children who are born here in the Virgin Islands have the opportunity to get their passport at age 10.
Yes.
Could you discuss that very quickly, because I have a question to ask you.
Yes.
Are you sure about this?
Yes, absolutely sure. I got it from very good source.
Well, is this popular knowledge?
At the age of 10, I'm pretty sure that you'd be able to participate in FIBA's activities if of course you went through the process. Now, we have some problems with the process as well, because just because we're entitled to it doesn't mean that we always get it. So the process needs to be tightened up.
Troy?
Well, I think it depends on who you ask. The pros, obviously going to depend on who you ask. I made a couple of notes, and the main thrust, some of the guys have already mentioned some key points about bitterness and cohesiveness, but it's an easy travel process if you can attain your passport, or that comes with the citizenship. Your ability to invest, your ability to buy and own land, your ability to operate businesses within the BVI, access to the education system, i.e. sports and all these different activities. So with that, the pros obviously are, once you have attained it from an early age, you can invest, you can own business, you can operate, you can buy land, just like all BVI landers.
What about the cons? And let's start with you, Troy. What are some of the possible drawbacks?
Well, I'm going to refer back again to the fact that it depends on who you ask. What might seem like a drawback to me may not seem like a drawback to a resident or someone coming from outside. But some of the cons would be It's difficult to control cultural identity if your decision is that every time somebody is born within the territory, regardless of their status, they're given citizenship and they're given a passport. The United States is one of the great countries who have used this measure, and persons who are not from the United States hail that as a great thing for them. But the residents of Arizona, for instance, who is a border town, they don't like the fact that you have a number of persons coming across the border in the United States, or persons that seem to be either taking up their jobs or changing their cultural disposition. So that could be one of the drawbacks. Also, in a small territory of 24 square miles, a race for available resources might drive up the cost of living. Obviously, if everyone is getting citizenship just because you're born, whether you have heritage or not. There's also, I had noted, the visa restrictions may have to become more strict, coming close to what the U.S. uses. If you look at the United States, most of the persons who are complaining about these passports, just to travel to the United States, you need a visa. So even though they have a policy that allows everyone who's born there to attain the passport, they have put a fence around it that you even can't travel there without a visa. And so, depends on which system you want to go with, you might end up having to put a more strict visa system in place, which might be difficult for the BVI if we're a tourism market and our tourism product. So those are some of the cons.
What about you, Sowande?
Well,
Any
Sean,
concerns?
much of the cons I've come up with mirror the ones that Troy has mentioned, but I'll go into some detail on some of them. It all depends on what type of society you want to build in terms of immigration. You know, as Troy said, it's just 24 square miles. When I was growing up, we used to talk about the population being between 18 to 20,000. Now we upwards of 30,000. And that's a huge leap. And for my parents, they remember when the BVI's population was below 10,000. So it's over the space of 30, 40 years, we've seen massive increases in the population, and that would have resulting effects. So you have the salad bowl type immigration, where everybody comes and they maintain their own identity. Some of them keep to themselves. They form enclaves, and you have a rich cultural diversity. You'd see something like that existing in America. America has a policy basically of every man for himself, and they don't really care too much about the cohesiveness of the community. But this society was built on cohesiveness. Little small villages, everybody knew each other, and everybody has a particular lifestyle and a particular way of life. I think the best type of immigration policies we can have here is one that encourages assimilation. And it's hard to expect anyone coming into the Virgin Islands to assimilate if you don't actually tie that to your citizenship requirements. So I think a con of granting it automatically is that you may not be able to encourage people to assimilate. And I'll give the example. I'm a lecturer at the college. If I gave everybody an A from the minute they entered my class, they don't have much incentive to work. And people have quite different cultural traits. It's not to say that anything is wrong with it. We could debate whether it's wrong or right. But you might be from New York and you might decide, well, we don't talk to people. We generally don't say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because in New York everybody just keeps to themselves. But here in the Virgin Islands it's different. We like good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's something we would like to maintain in our society. Just quickly, I would say as well that when you have citizens, Troy touched on this as well, you have obligations to your citizens in terms of schooling, in terms of providing them with good infrastructure, providing them with scholarships.
Health services.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, just like a family, you have to do good family planning. So if you can only afford to have 5 children, you shouldn't go ahead and have 10 children. So you can make sure that you can afford whatever citizens you have within your territory, and you have much more control of that if you do not grant automatic citizenship. And my last point, if I may, is it's also dangerous from a legal perspective for a parent and a child not to have the same immigration status. Like in the United States, for instance, between the years of 2010 and 2012, there was about 200,000 deportations of parents who had U.S.-born children. So what ends up happening is the children end up staying in the United States, and the parents would be deported to, let's say, Mexico or someplace like that. And because from a legal standpoint, the children have the right to abode while the parents have to leave, and that can create some problems. For instance, you have maybe about 5,000 children in that space of time that had to go into foster care, which is a burden on the state.
Noted. We gotta go to Sam. Sam, what are some of your concerns, if any at all?
Well, I think my concern, I think the biggest one is will mirror a little bit of what Sean Sowande and Troy may have said. There's a concern that lack of simulation might be an issue, cultural differences might be an issue, but I think overall, at the end of the day, with smart immigration control policy, migration to the territory of some of the folks who are coming in could be controlled. It could be controlled in a way that the people who are allowed to reside among us will naturally come in with some type of process that they showed an interest in the BVI culture, they showed an interest of simulating. So at the end of the day, if they were to get their status and then they had a family and those kids were given the rights to citizenship, then those kids naturally will take on that cultural jacket, so to speak.
So you really don't see any cons to granting automatic citizenship?
Well, what I look at is diversity will bring to me more benefits. Again, if it's control, that's what we're looking at. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a community that's, because again,
just wait 1 second, because Troy is saying that the cultural identity would not be clearly defined, and you're saying diversity would be good.
Well, look at it this way. Take the BVI history from, let's say, from 1920 all the way to now.
Very quickly.
We have had a change in our cultural identity for the past 70 to 80 years. No one can really define the BVI culture because we came on slave ships. As times grew and we start working with the U.S., we took on their behavioral attitudes and music and culture. So we've already experiencing a mixed culture. We have a number of people, at least 50% of our population in the BVI who came here in the 50s and 60s and 70s were not people of the BVI. So here we are today in a wonderful, beautiful, growing community, a progressive society because of that diversity.
There's one quick question.
Yes.
I'm trying to get some clarity from Sam. He's saying automatic or he's saying with controls? That was the question I had for him.
Yes, Sam, what are you saying?
With controls or automatic?
When I said control, I said the people who are coming in,
Yes.
the people who are coming in, whether on work permit, who are coming in to live among us, if they are coming in with a sense of understanding of our culture, however we define our culture, at the end of the day, when they now have a family, when they now have kids, those kids naturally would take on the cultural identity of their parents. So whatever that is, that's what that child is going to become. So if he now becomes a BVI Islander at birth because of the status of what I'm projecting should happen, then that child is a BVI Islander all the way through.
But culture is the behavior of a people, to sum it up, or a group of people, and of course that changes over time. So how would they somehow assimilate the culture of their parents when they're living in a different society?
Well, we are evolving. That's the problem.
What are your comments on it? Because
Well, definitely parents have a huge role to play in terms of the behavior of their children. And sometimes you even see children have a dual identity. You have an identity when you go to school and you interact with the students at school. And of course, in the school, they're going to be teaching you about the Virgin Islands. But you also have the culture of the parents. And when you have controls over citizenship, you can actually encourage parents to be able to assimilate. Of course, you know, in different places, the BVI is the same as well. You have different tests you have to do to be able to gain citizenship.
Like in the U.S.?
Absolutely. You have to learn a little bit about the culture. In my opinion, we could even do a little bit better than that here in the BVI. Have a real demonstration of some patriotism, because as we know, Sean, there are a lot of people here who are economic migrants. You know, they're not necessarily here because they have a love or appreciation for the BVI. Of course, there's some people who do have that love and appreciation, and they do move here. They love the place. They love how peaceful it is. They love how friendly the people are. But there are some people who, if not for the job opportunities, really wouldn't be here. And that's all right. That's okay. But people should be able to make a choice. And that's why, like, I think what was it, Sam said so. You should be able to come here and choose to come here to work. But if you want to obtain citizenship, you go through a different process. And it's a process that, in my opinion, that can start very early so that people have a reasonable expectation of what is required for citizenship, and they can move to be able to exhibit that. And of course, when they get citizenship, their children will get it automatically. The children will be entitled to it.
What's your take on this, Troy? Because I think they're running counter to some of the things that you said a while ago.
Well, I'm trying to get some clarity. I mean, we can speak, you know, on different sides of the issue. But if we're saying that children born in the BVI should get it automatically, that means it doesn't matter whether they assimilate or not. So I'm trying to be clear on what my brothers are saying, or if they're saying that there should be some mechanism where if their parents seem to be assimilated, then they get it. So you have two persons come to the BVI, maybe they're of Chinese heritage, or they originally came from China. Within a year, they got a child in the BVI, and they're planning to leave within 2 years. Should you give the child a passport, and should that be automatic? Or are we saying that cultural identity is important to us, and only if the child stays in the territory for 5 years or whatever period, then we would grant it? And you know, that's to me the question of why we try to refer to whether or not we're talking about automatic, or we're talking about whether there should be some qualifiers. Because some persons don't want any qualifiers. In the United States, as far as I'm concerned, there may be some caveats, but as far as I remember, as long as you're born in the United States, no questions asked, you get a passport. There is no, you know, if you had assimilated or not. The question is whether we support that or we support a control mechanism.
Well, Troy just spoke about the United States. Even the United States, who has what they call just solely, which is bought at citizenship at birth, is questioning it. There are a lot of people questioning it. The whole situation, as you know, about people coming across the border illegally. They have children there. The children are legally entitled.
But in this case, people are coming here legally and they're having their children, so the scenario is different.
Yeah, but basically what I'm saying is that there are people who have immigration pressures. And you're right to say that the immigration pressures that we've invited it upon ourselves. And I think that our governments have done a poor in the past. This is my opinion, in terms of having proper immigration policies and proper regulations to avoid the situation that we have today. But you're right that we've invited the pressures. But given the situation, it would be unintelligent in my mind to be able to have a situation where you would have intense economic pressures on yourself, given the size of the territory. The United States is crying, and the United States is a huge territory, but what about a 24 square mile island? I understand what many of the people who are coming in are saying, and some of the cries. I think we need to take some steps to address some of those concerns that they have.
We got to go to a break. When we return, though, we'll take a glimpse at the influx of Caribbean nationals, seeing that you've mentioned immigrants moving into different countries,
Yes.
but into the UK, and examine the implications for granting automatic citizenship to all children born here in the Virgin Islands. The big story continues in a moment.
Yes, but one time, you know, in the late 40s and early 50s, them did say that we colonizing England in reverse. Me and my Auntie Roger did say so. What a joyful news, Miss Smarty. I feel like my heart might burst. Jamaica people colonizing England in reverse. By the 100, by the 1,000, from country and from town, by the shipload, by the plane load, Jamaica is England bound. Them are pour out of Jamaica. Everybody's future plan is to take a big time job and settle in the motherland. Hey, what a island, what a people.
That phrase coined by Miss Louise Bennett out of Jamaica, that famous poet, colonizing England in reverse, colonization in reverse, in fact. Welcome back to The Big Story. I'm Sean Rose. Now, should all children born in the Virgin Islands be granted automatic citizenship, regardless of the status of their parents? The British Nationality Act of 1948 treated the terms Commonwealth citizens and British subjects as the same thing in 1948. And then all of that changed in 1962 and thereafter, primarily because there was an influx of Caribbean nationals into the UK on that vessel called the Empire Windrush in 1949 and several vessels after that. So immigration control stepped in, and pretty much this is one of the reasons why children who are born in the Virgin Islands cannot automatically get their citizenship, because if this was 1948, this would not have been a subject of discussion today. Gentlemen, where do we stand? Where do you stand, Sam? What do you think should happen? Are you for automatic citizenship, or do you believe there should be some control?
Well, Sean, I always believe where you're born is where you're from.
What about you, Sawande?
Well, I would have to be in favor of the controls at this present moment. But if we want to give automatic citizenship, things would change dramatically, and many of the people who have access to the Virgin Islands now may not have it in the future.
Stick a pin. What about you, Troy?
I support controls. Sam uses the phrase, where you're born is where you're from. And that's something that I've thought deeply on. If I came from Lebanon and you were born in the BVI, are you from the BVI or are you from Lebanon?
Well, you can't.
And that's the question that we seem to be trying to hit on.
What?
When you say that you are from someplace, if somebody said they're from New York, does it mean that they've lived in New York for a period of time, or does it mean that they were just born in New York? Where you're born is your birthplace. Yes. I'm not sure if that's where you're from.
Well, I just want to clarify what Troy just said. He said, if you came from Lebanon, you're born in the BVI. You can't be born in Lebanon in BVI if you came from Lebanon.
Yes.
So where you're born, where you're from. If you're born in the BVI, you're a BVI lander. You can't be a Lebanese born in the BVI.
I qualify that
So,
because I'm saying specifically, I meant your parents.
I know what you meant, but I think we should be careful. I said it straight out. Where you're born is where you're from.
So
we have migrants
Yes.
who